Hello friends, today we are taking about a discipline that is education, and in education we are concentrating on teacher education and particularly on the topic innovative methods. You can see the slide, innovative methods of teaching and use of technology. When I say innovative methods of teaching and use of technology, we should know that why teaching should be effective. The first and foremost funda is that we think of the effective teachers we have had over the years with a sense of recognition, but those who have touched our humanity, we remember with a deep sense of gratitude. Fine. So here we are coming to a certain thing that innovation means innovation in teaching. But before that, we should compare the traditional method of teaching. Why traditional method and what is the difference between traditional method and innovative method? For that, let us again go to the slide. We think too much about effective methods of teaching and not enough about effective methods of learning. It is said that from the birth to the grave, we are still learners. Okay? Let us go to the next slide. We can see various quotations given by great people. What is education or what is learning? Education is the manifestation of perfection already existing in man. Fine. Next is, there are not students of our generation where they sit down and listen. I think things have changed now. They want to explore, cut and paste. Today, the age is known as information age, where you can access the information from various resources. So, when you go to the class and teach something, mind well that the students are knowing it before you know it. Fine. So, now let us analyze what is traditional method of teaching. There can be, go to the teletalk. Traditional method of teaching. When we say traditional method of teaching, the first thing that comes to our mind is the chalk and talk. Chalk and talk method. When we were children, we were in the schools, every now and then we used to see like a lecturer used to come and he teaches through only the explanation part and just go on taking the chalk and writing something on the board. This is chalk and talk methods. So this is a traditional monotonous method that we are following since the time immemorial. When we go to the classes, still we find that the teachers are teaching with this chalk and talk. Sometimes if it is effective and sometimes it is non-effective. The same thing is like the second one, that is a OHP. OHP means overhead projectors. Overhead projector was only the last technology in the ancient periods that we used to have. For an example, we put the transparency, we write something and it is displayed on the OHP. And what information they are getting is list. Fine. So these traditional methods, we have to break these traditional methods and turn into innovative methods of teaching. Now let us see how we have analysis of traditional method of teaching. Pre-technology education context, the teacher is the sender of the source. The educational material is the information or message. The student is the receiver of the information. The delivery medium that I told you earlier also, the chalk and talk method or OHP or overhead projector where we use the transparency. In what happened in such lectures was that in such lectures students assume a purely passive role and their concentrations fade off after 15-20 minutes. The moment the teacher turns the back to write something on the blackboard, the class become very much, like we can say, sound polluted and they could not listen the lectures very properly. So that happened in the traditional methods of teaching. Now let us look into the limitations. teacher in classroom using chalk and talk is one-way flow of information. If you just see the what is one-way flow of information, let us look at to the teletalk, you will understand. In the circle, there is a teacher who teaches and there is one, that is a student. So there is only a one flow. That means whatever the teacher is teaching, the teacher is active and the students are passive. Even if the case the students are active or the teacher is passive, the same one flow process is there. There is no combination of the third two-way process, interaction, bipolar, nothing. Only the two-way process. Teachers, let us look into the slide. Teachers often continuously talk for an hour without knowing students' response and feedback. The material presented is only based on lecture notes and textbooks. If you see that, you will find that when we enter into the class, most of the times we are carrying our notes with ourselves, we are updated with ourselves, and whatever we have crammed or mugged up, we display it in our class. So that also become a monotonous, because the students are not receptive. They are a passive listeners in the class. They are not listening to you properly. They are not giving you the proper feedback. Let us go to the slide again. There is insufficient interaction with students in classroom. More emphasis has been given on theory without any practical and real life time situation. Learning from memorization but not understanding. See, learning something needs proper understanding. If only we learn, cram and mug up without understanding the basic concept, then it is totally, your knowledge is totally nullified. You can't apply it in your future life. Fine. Again we will go to the slides. Now what is the basic base of innovative methods of teaching? So it is based on a basic quote that look like this: I hear and I forget, I see and I believe, I do and I understand. Very true. If I hear, there are chances that I can forget. Fine. I see, then I think that I can believe that particular thing. But when I do practically, then that means I understand the thing. That doesn't mean that you put an acid on your hand and if it burns, that means it is an acid. No. But you should know the working conditions, how it is more effective. Fine. It is also a very wonderful quote given by Winston Churchill. Let us go to the slide again. You will find that the empires of the future are the empires of the mind. Very well said. Next slide. Innovative methods of teaching. One of the most innovative method is the multimedia learning processes. Now what are the multimedia learning processes? That can be audio visual, animation, still pictures, motion pictures, text, video, etc. So these all things contribute to a rich and effective learning process. You can see in the slide that there are certain things given on, that the text, the images, the audio, the video and the animation. If you go into the class of 6th standard to 7th standard, 8th standard, 9th standard, the moment you present a PowerPoint presentation and if you put certain animation in that, you will find that students are very much enthusiastic to find out what is next or what this animation going to work out. A simple example. In BA teaching training process, when the teacher trainee enters in the in the classroom with a chart, fine, with all sort of animation and everything, the students are very much excited to see the chart instead of the teaching learning processes. So always teaching learning processes are more effective when you use multimedia techniques, when you use any innovative way of visual representations. The students are very much interested in listening to what you are teaching. Let us see traditional and multimedia learning. Traditional method, I told you earlier also, traditional method is a one-way flow. That means there is a teacher and the student. Whatever the teacher teaches is receptive for the students. So there is a one-way flow. While when you go to the multimedia, you can see in the circles there are two circles. One is the teacher and other is the student. In the same process, multimedia learning. Multimedia learning is also known as an interactive learning process where you can see the three circles are given: teacher, student and multimedia. The involvement of teacher, the involvement of the students and involvement of the multimedia makes the teaching more effective. That is why it is said that in innovative methods of teaching, we should use multimedia, audio, video, or visual aids, etc. to make the teaching more purposeful. One of the new techniques that is uprising is the concept of mind mapping. This is one of the innovative technique. Now let us see what is mind mapping. Now mind mapping, as you can see in the slide, it is developed by Tony Buzan in 1960. Now there are certain things that is making notes with keywords and images, visual and sensory tools at our disposal, recollect information for a long time. Here I will show you a small example of mind mapping. It is about scalar quantities. You can see that a student knows very nicely what are the mathematical equations or what is length, the basic measurement things like length, speed, time, volume, mass, energy, pressure, charge, etc. Now these all constitutes into a scalar thing, that means the scalar quantities. So mind mapping is something that your distracted information is collected and you are coming to one concept is known as mind mapping. For an example, if you are teaching in SS, about the Mughal kings, okay, so what you can do, you can relate the historical facts, collect information about the historical facts, collect the ancestral basis of the historical facts and make a concept like it is now that all these things are chronologically associated and how we can associate the rule of Mughal or the Mughal period of India. Fine. So one of the innovative methods of teaching is like mind mapping. It is a latest, so most of the schools are using this technique to rejuvenate the knowledge that is already absent in the minds of the teacher as well as the student. This is the most important thing that a teacher should do in the class, is a sense of humor. Fine. As it is said, laughter is the best medicine, but it is also like this. As we see in the slide, laughter is a natural, universal phenomenon with beneficial effects, both physical and psychological. Everyone loves a teacher with an infectious sense of humor, cordial relationship, ability to relax people and reduce tension, advertising strategy, cartoon. Whenever there is a willingness to change, there is a hope for progress in any field. Students enjoy humor in forms of funny anecdotes. This is one of the ability that each and every teacher should possess while they are teaching in the class. They should have, for an example, if you are teaching English, prose, poem, any language or literature, you should have at least a sense of humor in that. By adding it, you will create an energy in the class. The students will become more active rather than making them more themselves passive. Okay. Go to the next slide. Next innovative approach is Z2A approach. Now let us know what is Z2A approach. This particular approach attempts to explain the application part, a particular concept first, makes a particular concept clear. Students develop interest to know how exactly the concept, creates long lasting memory, correlation of the concept. Let us go to the teletalk. Here you can find in the teletalk that when you make a clarity of concept, what you need, for an example in English, if I am teaching noun, you should make it very clear how these bases are formed, like names of person, things, subjects, all these are coordinated with names. Okay, so whenever there is a name, that means naming any object or any subject or anything or any person, then it automatically defines what is noun. So that the clarity of the concept is made clear from the various resources that is available. It can be termed as an inductive approach, where you start with examples, you start with illustration, where you give a bit of information and that information simultaneously leads to the concept. Now each and every method has its strength and has its weakness also. So when we say Z2A approach, it has its weakness and it has its strength also. If we remember, when I was displaying before you the that means the mind mapping, that time what happened, the mind mapping is the latest concept, fine, but there are weaknesses. The weaknesses are the same in all the approaches, maybe differ in one or two ways. So the weakness, you can see that the teacher take a quite long time for a teacher to introduce the concept. As we are very well acknowledged that the teacher has to run from pillar to post to complete the syllabus, to complete the curriculum, to complete the period. In a short period of time, she has to prepare herself to make the class active, and she has to use all these methods one after the other. So she must be very well acknowledged about those methods. But when it is well acknowledged about this method, she is finding flaws in that, like lot of time